Yo, 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 what up, Goons? This is your week 6 start sits. We're out here with my boy Snowman to my left. I don't know what way he shows up on your video. And to my right, I got my boy Sean. Today, we're going to break down 6 picks that you can start, and then we're going to go over 6 picks that you might want to sit. Now, a little disclaimer on this video. These guys are going to be like kind of like your flex options, your wide receiver 2s and 3s. You're obviously starting your Jamar Chases, your Patrick Mahomes, even though he threw a pick today. You're starting all these guys, all right? So let's get into it. My start of the week, it's got to be Alexander Madison. Ever since Cam Akers came there, Alexander Madison's been running like a pissed off person trying to keep their job, man. He's scored double-digit fantasy points in 4 out of 5 games. That's in half PPR formats. They're trusting him more and more. Akers is not being used as much as we thought he was gonna be used. Now the Bears are ranked 30th against the run. Yeah, that's right. He's going against the Bears in a divisional matchup. Minnesota just lost Justin Jefferson, so look for them to spread it out a bit more and maybe rely on the running game a bit more now. So yeah, man, Madison, that's my dude. And then my second start is wide receiver Christian Kirk. Now, Christian Kirk, you're probably starting him every week, but you drafted him maybe as your wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. I think he's kind of moved up to that wide receiver 2 territory. He's the wide receiver 23 on the season. He's actually outperformed Calvin Ridley 3 out of the 5 games. So I think that's pretty impressive. He is also another guy that's scored double-digit fantasy points in 4 out of the last 5 matchups. The first game we saw Zay Jones come in there, and Christian Kirk didn't really get that many snaps. Zay Jones was the wide receiver 2. I think Christian Kirk has solidified himself as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Sometimes he could even be the wide receiver 1, depending on your matchups. Now I'm going to hand it off to my boy Snowman. What you got, bro?
Okay, so my first start is tight end Logan Thomas. He led the team with 11 targets last week. He had 9 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown, finishing with 16.2 fantasy points.
That Eric
He's been the
Bieniemy offense, eh?
Oh yeah. Speaking of Eric Bieniemy, he's bringing that scheme over to the Washington offense, and he's kind of scheming him up like he did with Kelsey back in Kansas City. Logan Thomas was a former quarterback converted into a tight end, so he's been that security blanket for Sam Howell. He's been finding the holes in the defenses, so he's been playing pretty consistent. He's scored 6 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, so it gives him a bit of a safe floor. And now he's going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who are allowing the 5th most yards and the 2nd most points to tight ends. He's a great streamer this week, and he may even have value rest of season as well. This Commanders O-line is horrible. Sam Howell has been the most sacked quarterback, so he doesn't have enough time to throw those plays down the field or make those big plays down the field to Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson. So having a safety blanket like Thomas definitely helps. My second start is wide receiver Gabe Davis. Last year he was more
Ooh.
boomer bust, but this year he's been very, very consistent. He had 8 targets for 6 catches and 100 yards this past week, and he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. He also leads the Bills in red zone targets with 5. He's
Damn.
got that big playability, and he's being used a lot in the red zone too. Now he's going up against the New York Giants, who are allowing the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and they've already allowed 6 touchdowns to wide receivers on the year. So I'm starting Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
Off to you,
man.
Sean.
Before we get there, how nice is it that Logan Thomas is finally starting to play good, man? We've been it's like every year we've been drafting Logan Thomas as like a top 12 tight end, but the man just couldn't stay healthy. Now with Eric Bieniemy there and Washington's defense being way more trash than we thought it was going to be, Logan Thomas is
Hmm.
getting a lot of catches, and Gabe Davis's consistency. I think he has what, 3 or 4 touchdowns on the season.
Or yeah.
Last year, yeah, man.
I think
Last
it's
year, you
four.
could
Yeah.
not trust that guy, man. Big play, Gabe. I owe Gabe Davis an apology because I remember in one of our first videos, I had him as a sit and I said he sucked. And what did he do? He went out there, scored a touchdown, and gave me one of these. So, so yeah, man. Shout out Gabe Davis, man. I was wrong. My bad. off
Yeah,
the
just to add to that, yeah, just to add to that on Gabe Davis, I think I think I saw these numbers of like the number of targets he was getting last year versus this year, and it's actually gone down. So he's doing more with the less amount of targets. Maybe the positive or negative regression happens with touchdowns, and you might see him kind of drop down a little bit with his touchdowns. But I mean, he's catching the ball, like his catch rate on the targets that he's receiving has gone quite a bit significantly up since last year. So that's nice to see as well. So we'll see a little bit more from Gabe Davis, but I think, yeah, definitely he's a nice start there, bro. Good pick.
Mhm.
Sean, who you got for your starts, homie?
All right, so my first start of the week is going to be running back for the Buffalo Bills. It's James Cook. They're playing against the Giants this week. Positive game script matchups. Cook has been a beast. He's done really well this year. He's coming off of a dud, but in the last 5 weeks, he's only had one game, which was last week, with less than 10 PPR fantasy points. For half PPR, he's just been a little bit behind that. And that's not a great number, but again, this is a plus matchup. The offense should be able to move pretty easily, and I think Cook should eat. So I'm starting James Cook this week.
That's a good Cook, man. Soon we're gonna get to a next Cook, and, and that guy's cooked. You know what I mean? So this guy's on
I
fire,
feel
cooked.
you.
That one's on his way out, cooked. Who's your next start, brother?
All right, my next start is a bit more of a sneaky start, but it's Tyler Boyd versus the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has a really, really good run defense, so I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. I think on average, teams are throwing 41 and a half times. And so if T. Higgins doesn't play, I really like Boyd. He always steps up when that number 2 spot is available. Last week, in the same situation, he had 7 targets and was definitely the number 2 in terms of routes run behind Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had a huge week, as we all know last week. So there's a possibility the defense hones in a little bit more on him. And so I could definitely see Tyler Boyd being a little nice sneaky snart for you if you need something with the bye weeks or some injuries that have happened over the last week, which has just been devastating. But yeah, James Cook and Tyler Boyd are my starts. Run him up.
Yeah, man. Tyler Boyd's one of those sneaky guys, man. He could pop off. He's all right there, man. I think T. Higgins said he feels like he's gonna play. He said that last week. Yeah, it's not up to you, brother. I have you on my fantasy team. I hope you play, but it's not. It's apparently it's not up to you, man. So hopefully you're out there. If not, Tyler Boyd is a good start for you guys. All right, so let's get to our sits. We got a couple names on here. One of them's a little bit obvious, but there's a reason behind that. Some of them might surprise you. But yeah, I'll start this one off. I'm gonna go with the QB that's been pretty damn good all year, Mr. Undefeated Brock Purdy. I'm sitting him not because of his skill, but more because of Cleveland's defense. They've only allowed one passing touchdown in the last 5 weeks, albeit they did have a bye week. I just think that this might be a matchup where San Francisco's defense might take over. Deshaun Watson is expected to be out. Jerome Ford is dealing with a knee injury. If Pierre Strong is out there, see if you can get him. Because if Ford goes down, then you got another RB that might pop into your RB2 territory. But yeah, anyways, Brock Purdy. I just think that the defense is going to dominate this game. They're going to run the ball a lot more. Cleveland's defense on the outside, Denzel Ward is playing lights out. I'm not starting Brock Purdy unless I absolutely have to. We're only bringing him up because there's been so many injuries that have happened in this season. Seems like fantasy season this year sucks because everyone's getting hurt, at least on my team. Anyways, my second set is your boy Dalvin Cook. Now, there might be a reason why Minnesota didn't give this man a contract. He does not look very good out there. He was supposed to be the handcuff to Breece Hall, or at least the split carry, the 60-40 guy with Breece Hall until he gets healthy. We all saw what Breece Hall did last week. He showed us why the hell he's a sick running back, why we spend a high draft capital on him, coming off an ACL, and he looks explosive as hell. That Jets offense is starting to figure things out. Milf Hunter's playing a little bit better. So yeah, man, I think Breece Hall is going to be a guy that you're going to start all the time. But Dalvin Cook, man, you're sitting him. He's literally had under a 30% snap share every week except for week 1. He hasn't even scored over 5 points, bro. Like I think he's only done that one time. Brother, weren't you just like complaining you wanted a big ass contract? You sign with the Jets. Brees Hall's popping off for 100 yards. You can't get me 5 fantasy points. Sit your ass on the bench, brother. So yeah, we are not starting Dalvin Cook this week. He's out of here for me. What about you, Snowman?
So
Who's joining Dalvin Cook on my bench?
So the first sit I got, I feel like I say this guy's name every week, but it's going to be running back Dameon Pierce.
Didn't
He's
you
just in a
just
tough
trade for Dameon
situation.
Pierce?
And I'll explain that to you in a second why I traded for him. But this week, you're not playing him. He's got limited upside this week due to a very tough matchup against the Saints, who've allowed 0 touchdowns. They're allowing the 5th fewest points to running backs. And Dameon Pierce has only scored 1 touchdown in the year, and he's averaging 2.9 yards per carry on the season and only 1.1 yards per carry after contact. And the Saints defensive line is giving up only 1.2 yards per carry before contact. So this is just a formula for disaster for him this week. The volume has been there every week, but the production isn't matching the volume so far. But this is why I'm trading for him. He was a buy low candidate. Singletary got 0 work on the ground last week, and he looks like he's not going to be a factor. He basically has the O-line becoming more healthy now. I think the whole O-line is healthy now, so better days are coming for him. There's better matchups coming up in the future, and Stroud is playing good, so I think this team is going to start to click real good on the passing game and on the running game, but I wouldn't play him this week. It's just too tough of a matchup. Yeah, and then for my second sit, you went with Brock Purdy. I'm gonna have to go with wide receiver Deebo Samuel. This is gonna be a risky start. I mean, most people are gonna probably end up starting him, but I personally would say maybe sit him for this week. It's a tough matchup against the Browns. They're #1 ranked against wide receivers. They've only given up 1 TD and the fewest points to wide receivers. He's going to be seeing most likely cornerback Martin Emerson, who's allowing 2.7 points per game to wide receivers. If he plays in the slot, then he's going to see Greg Newsome, who's allowing 3.9 points per game to wide receivers. And here's the thing. He's going up against the Cleveland Browns. Last year, the Cleveland Browns had Joe Woods as their defensive coordinator, who played majority heavy zone defense, and they were a bottom 10 defense when that happened. But when they played man coverage, they were a top 5 defense when that happened. Well, Joe Woods is out of here, and now defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is in here, and he's been playing heavy man coverage all year. Hence why they're the #1 defense against wide receivers. And here's the thing when you play the San Francisco wide receivers. If you go up against a defense that's playing a lot of zone coverage, you play Deebo Samuel. You play against a defense that's playing a lot of man coverage, you play Brandon Ayuk. That's just been how it's been going this year. So based off the scheme, the matchup, and everything, I got to stay away from Deebo this year. Off to you, Sean.
Just before I get into mine, just remember to follow us, subscribe to us at Game Day Goons on all platforms. I do want to comment on that. I do think that's a really good pick as a sit, although with the injuries and with just everything that's been going on, plus the bye weeks, you probably do have to start Deebo. But I'd like to think you have to temper your expectations for all the reasons you just mentioned. Really good stuff on there. I do think as well. He hasn't been able to run the ball that much this year as well, and you kind of can't give him too many opportunities when you've got Christian McCaffrey on your team. So I think that's going to hinder his upside as well this week. So I like that pick a lot. We'll get into my sits. My first one is Miles Sanders. There's 3 reasons for this, and to put it simply, it's because he's injured, he's losing work, and it's a bad matchup. If he plays, I don't know how you can trust him. I mean, Chuba Hubbard is taking work. He's been outrushed by Chuba the last 2 games. And they're playing against Miami this week. Good luck, Carolina. It sucks that you don't have your pick. It sucks that it's gone to Chicago this year. But aside from that, I'm sitting Miles Sanders this week. And if you absolutely need a start, you could probably look at Chuba Hubbard, just because if Miles is injured a little bit or still just has some issues. Again, Chuba's outrushed in the last 2 weeks, so I would sit Miles Sanders this week for sure.
Yeah, man. For someone that's getting that much volume, he's kind of been a frustrating player to own, man.
Yeah, he
He's been
started
very
off
banged
all
up
right.
too.
Yeah, but the last couple of weeks, I think just with being banged up, and then Carolina has just looked so bad all
Yeah.
over the field, right? Like both sides of the ball, just not good.
Except for Adam Thielen.
Adam Thielen, man.
What the hell is going on there,
Everyone
man?
counted that man out. Everyone counted him out. He slid in all these drafts.
The old man getting it done.
Oh yeah, man, that's it. That's your reliable man. That's what it goes to show when you have elite route running. There will always be a spot for you. You don't always have to be the fastest guy. You don't always have to be the biggest guy. But if you're an elite route runner, you will have a spot in the NFL. Shout out Hunter Renfro,
100%.
get him the ball. Anyways, Sean, who's your next set, brother?
Yeah, my next set is probably going to surprise a lot of you, and I kind of surprised myself a little bit with this, but I'm just looking at the matchup and everything, and I'm sitting Zach Moss this week against the Jaguars. Call me crazy. He had a great week last week, but thing is, we should have known JT was going to get eased in. He had missed 4 weeks straight after being on IR, had a bit of practice time, but you don't have a guy hold out and then pay the guy to give him a 50-50 split. JT is going to start taking more and more work. And the Jags are actually 5th in the league in run defense. I don't think Zach Moss is going to get zero work, but it's not going to be as significant as it's been in the last couple of weeks, regardless of how good he's been. And so for that reason, I think JT is going to get 60 to 70% of the work this week, maybe even more. And with a negative matchup in terms of how good the Jaguars' deep run defense has been, I'm going to be sitting Zach Moss this week, unless you absolutely need him.
Question: if you have Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, who do you start out of the two? You have to start one.
Give me
And
some
let's just give it
JT.
a let's just give it a half PPR format. Just
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
me in the middle.
Yeah, I
Oh
don't
man,
think
I don't know.
yeah, I don't think you can like just say that Zach Moss is going to go away. Like he's been like exceptional this year, like really really good.
He's been
But I
damn
just
good,
think
man.
like yeah, I just think with JT coming back and getting paid, he's going to take over the majority of this work share. Maybe it won't be this week, but I'm betting that it starts this week, and that's why I think I would start JT over
Mm-hmm.
Zach Moss if I had them both.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I think I jumped the gun last week when I said sit him because like when you have such an elite talent like JT, you get trigger happy, right? You're like, oh man, my star player's back. I gotta play him. And running backs, they need to ease up. You saw with Josh Jacobs, he had some rust, he needed to shake it off. I don't know how this is gonna go, but if you have Zach Moss and you could get something elite for him, or you can get something good for him, maybe you want to sell high on Zach Moss because he's not going to be
Well,
getting 20 to 30 points every week. I know somebody sold high on Zach Moss.
so in our home league, I actually traded Zach Moss for Damian Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, now that Shane Steichen's saying that they're ramping up Jonathan Taylor's workload, um, he's going to be seeing majority of the snaps going forward. So Moss is more so going to be like, I mean, he'll still get some work, but more of a handcuff. So if you can trade him for someone that's like a buy low candidate right now, like a Damian Pierce, I'd try and do that. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
like
for
that trade
sure.
actually.
Like,
It's
yeah, man, Zach Moss for maybe a Ramondre, maybe a T Higgins owner that's kind of upset. Somebody like that, man. Somebody that's not performing. Maybe if you can package Zach Moss and maybe George Pickens or something for a CD Lamb, that might be something you want to look at because you know what happened at the beginning of the year, but you gotta admit, like, this is not going to be sustainable for all year. I think last year, this is what
Yeah.
happened with Edwards Hilaire and it happened with James Robinson. They were snapping the first 5 weeks. They were both top 8 running backs. And then the other guys started taking over again. And we saw a decline. Luckily, I got to sell high on those guys last year. But that's a story for a different day. Anyways, so that's what you got. Those are your week 6 start and sits. Well, some of them at least. The rest of them you can get from us on Sundays. We go live 11 a.m. for all your start sit questions. Give us the complicated ones. Give us the easy ones. Whatever you want to do, let us help you win your fantasy leagues. As my boy Snowman would say, check my resume. Snowman's won a lot of championships. That's why we say that. Anyways, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Game Day Goons. Shout out to Tenement Cards at tenement.com. Check them out. They are our sponsor. Shout out Freshbox. We're doing it big out here. So yeah, holla at your boys. Game Day. Peace.